Snow fell like ash over the frontier town, quiet and relentless, softening the sharp edges of a year that had taken more than it gave. The bells at the end of Main Street rang once to announce the coming of midnight, but no one cheered. New Year's Eve arrived here without celebration, without champagne or music, only cold breath in the air and memories people were trying to leave behind. She slept beneath the eaves of the closed apothecary, wrapped in a thin wool shawl that had once belonged to her husband. Her name was Lin Hua. The townsfolk had passed her all evening. Some slowed, some stared, most pretended not to see her at all. A Chinese widow alone in a border town was a problem no one wanted to claim. She had worked the laundry by the river until the owner stopped paying her. Then she worked the kitchen at the saloon until a fight broke out and someone decided she was easier to blame than the men with guns. By nightfall, she had nowhere left to go. So she curled herself against the wooden wall, tucked her hands under her cheek, and let exhaustion carry her somewhere far from the cold stone and the sound of laughter drifting from places she was not welcome. That was how the gunslinger found her. He stood at the edge of the street, coat dusted with snow, revolver hanging low at his side like a promise he no longer wanted to keep. His name was Caleb Crow, though most people just called him Crow, and said it carefully. He had come into town at dusk, riding a tired horse with a limp he recognized because it matched his own. The year had not been kind to him either. He had buried too many men, walked away from too many places with blood on the ground and silence behind him. He had planned to leave before midnight. Then he saw her. At first, he thought she was dead. Crow slowed his steps, boots crunching softly, his hand hovering near the grip of his gun out of habit more than intent. He crouched a few feet away and watched her breathe. Slow, shallow, alive. Her face was pale in the lantern light, lashes dark against her skin. There were bruises at her wrist, faint but unmistakable. Not from a fall, from being held too tightly by someone who believed he could. Something tightened in Crow's chest. He stood there longer than he meant to, listening to the distant sound of a piano playing something cheerful and wrong. Listening to the wind press against the buildings like it was asking to be let inside. Finally, he spoke. "You'll freeze out here." Lin Hua's eyes opened instantly. She didn't scream, didn't flinch. She pushed herself upright in one smooth movement, alert despite the cold and exhaustion. Her gaze found his face, then his gun, then his eyes again. "I am fine," she said quietly. Crow nodded. He'd heard that lie before. Spoken it himself. "It's nearly midnight," he said. "Cold gets mean after." She pulled the shawl tighter. "I will leave before morning." "Where to?" She didn't answer. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not hostile. Crow noticed how she held herself, guarded, proud, balanced on the edge between fear and refusal. He took off his coat and held it out to her. She stared at it like it was a trick. "I don't want payment," he said. "And I don't want trouble." She hesitated, then took it. Her fingers brushed his, quick and light, like a bird testing whether a branch would hold. "Thank you," she said. Crow exhaled slowly. "Name's Crow." After a moment, Lin Hua. The bells rang again, closer now. Midnight was coming whether anyone wanted it or not. Crow looked down the street. Fireworks cracked somewhere distant. Laughter rose and fell. Another year turning its back. "You shouldn't be alone tonight," he said. Her eyes hardened. "I have been alone a long time." He met her gaze steadily. "Then you're good at surviving. Doesn't mean you have to keep doing it the hardest way." She studied him carefully. The scar along his jaw. The wear in his eyes. The way he stood like a man who expected the world to strike first. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Crow didn't answer right away. The truth was tangled. Guilt. Memory. A woman he once left behind because he thought danger was something he could outrun. Finally, he said, "Because it's the end of the year. And I'm tired of walking past things that matter." The bells rang 12 times. A new year began in the cold. Crow shifted his weight, suddenly unsure. Then he spoke the words that would follow him for the rest of his life. "Come home with me," he said, voice low. "If you want." Lin Hua looked at the empty street, at the dark windows, at the snow settling into the footprints of people who hadn't stopped. Then she looked back at the gunslinger standing in front of her, offering no promises, only choice. "I will come," she said softly. Crow nodded once. That was all. They walked together into the falling snow, two broken lives stepping carefully into a year that had not yet decided what it would take, or what it might give back. And somewhere behind them, the old year closed its door. They did not speak as they walked. The snow thickened, softening the sound of their steps, as if the town itself were choosing not to remember them. Crow led the way down a side street where the lamps burned low and the buildings leaned toward one another like old men sharing secrets. Lin Hua followed half a step behind, not because he asked her to, but because a lifetime of caution had taught her where safety sometimes lived. His house sat at the edge of town, a weathered place with a slanted porch and a single window glowing faintly. No fence, no sign, just a door that had been opened and closed too many times by a man who never stayed long. Crow stopped at the steps. "You can leave in the morning," he said, not looking at her. No questions, no debt. She studied his back, the way his shoulders carried both strength and weariness. "I am not afraid of staying," she replied. "I am afraid of being sent away." That landed heavier than he expected. "You won't be," he said, and surprised himself by meaning it. Inside, the house smelled of wood smoke and solitude. A single chair, a table with one plate, a bed made tight, like it was rarely slept in. Crow lit the lamp and stepped aside so she could enter without feeling watched. "You can take the bed," he said. "I'll sit up." "No," Lin Hua said gently. "We will share the night the way strangers do. With distance, with respect." Crow nodded, something like relief crossing his face. They ate quietly, bread, beans, what little he had. The silence wasn't empty, it was careful, listening. Later, as the fire burned low, Lin Hua spoke. "My husband died 2 winters ago," she said, staring into the flames. "He came here believing work would make us safe. The river took him." Crow swallowed. "I'm sorry." She glanced at him. "You don't look like a man who believes words fix things." He gave a faint smile. "They don't, but sometimes they keep the dark from getting louder." She slept that night wrapped in his coat, and Crow stayed awake until dawn, listening to the wind and the slow, steady proof that she was alive. Morning came pale and cold. Trouble followed with it. A knock, hard, deliberate. Crow was on his feet before the second strike, hand resting near his gun. He opened the door to find 2 men he recognized. Men who remembered him not as the quiet rancher he'd tried to become, but as the gunslinger he once was. "She with you?" one asked, eyes already searching past him. Crow stepped forward, blocking the view. "She's under my roof." That was enough. The tension thickened, old blood stirring. Lin Hua appeared behind him then, calm, unafraid, her presence steady as stone. "We're leaving town," Crow said. "Today." The men laughed, but they backed away. Reputation still mattered. By noon, Crow had saddled his horse. Lin Hua carried nothing but the shawl and a small cloth bundle. As they rode out, she looked back only once, not at the town, but at the door she hadn't known she'd needed. Days passed, then weeks. They spoke more, trusted slowly. Lin Hua learned that Crow had put down his gun for a reason, because every man he killed took something with him. Crow learned that Lin Hua carried strength like water carries depth, unseen until tested. Love did not arrive loudly. It came in shared work, in quiet laughter, in the way she waited for him to return from the fields, and the way he never rode past sunset again. One night, months later, as snow fell once more, Lin Hua reached for his hand. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "That night." Crow shook his head. "That night saved me." The fire crackled. Outside, the world remained harsh and uncertain. But inside that small house, 2 survivors had built something gentle. Something real. And sometimes, that is how fate changes. Not with a gunshot, but with an open door, and a single sentence spoken softly into the cold. If this story moved you, if quiet courage and unexpected love speak to your heart, subscribe, like, and share to keep these stories alive. This is Whispers After Dark, where broken paths still lead home. Crescent Moon.